All right, so welcome to the Jenna Hurst podcast. Thank you for leaping in. I think you're one of the very few people that booked a call with me. So thank you, Courtney Flynn, for being here. And
Yeah,
as I was just talking before I hit record, I actually know almost nothing about Courtney. We recently became Facebook friends, been following a little bit of her content, and I know she's in, as I understand, the healing coaching world. So I'd love you to take the mic and to share with the people who you are and what you're up to.
yeah, that's actually for me a huge question. So
Mhm.
I will just start um, kind of a little as briefly as possible. I've been in this industry for 15 years. I started this when I was 27, 26, 27, and just took a huge leap because even at that age, I couldn't handle, I was all about um, like climbing the corporate ladder, even though it was all about helping people, but that was all I knew was the idea of that until, and that just managers loved me, but it didn't really get me anywhere. I would get extra special titles and all of these different things, right? But it you have to be in a special kind of corporate world to be able to get somewhere, right? Like that. They just will use you for extra things and not really pay you anything. They just give you titles. And my heart and my soul was just sinking more and more and more. I would be depressed when I was waking up. I couldn't do it anymore, And then I found out about health coaching. Had no clue what health coaching. Oh, actually, no. I got fired from my job, which I'd never would have gotten fired from a job. Like that definitely was a universe kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
My grandmother passed away. Uh, I got fired because I took a day off. It's a new job, and um, I was just like, I'm done. I'm done. And I was somebody who's terrified of everything. Like I was, so afraid, of course I have to have this like stable job. And if I want to do, because I was just always talking about, I want to have my own business. I was saying it at 20, but I didn't know what that meant. And so I don't know. I couldn't do it. I couldn't go back. I couldn't wake up depressed anymore. And I used to organize for friends and family. So I was like, well, I'll just put myself on Craigslist and do that. And so that's kind of where it all started for me, was doing that. And I ended up doing it for one person because I found that I like doing it for my family and friends, and I hate doing it for other people. I just didn't know. Um, but that woman was a naturopath, and she was like, hey, Courtney, you know more about food than I do. You should go to IIN and become a health coach. And I was like, what's IIN and what is a health coach? I had no idea what any of that meant. Found out about it, was really excited, but then it was, going to be thousands of dollars to do that. And even though I grew up very, very poor, like lights on was a good thing, like I knew how to live by candles and things like that. And so probably by the age of 11, I was babysitting and doing everything I could to make money, not only to be able to have clothes that were not my mother's hand-me-downs with holes in them, but to get school supplies, but also to help my family with money. Um, because that was just, where my heart was. And so I always was pretty stable with money.
Mhm.
But I didn't have like, I didn't really have savings. Um, at the time around this whole Institute of Integrative Nutrition, by the way, is what the school was. I didn't have the kind of credit. Obviously, I didn't have family with money, but I was just so done with the status quo. I felt like I was somebody, like I'm in my early 40s now, but I felt like somebody in their 40s who was like done with all of this, but I was in my mid 20s,
Mhm.
and so I just decided it was somehow going to happen. And it did. My grandmother actually left us a decent amount of money. I got $10,000 out of nowhere that I'd never had that kind of money before, and became a health coach. And then that's when I entered this world of coaching and entrepreneurialism, and because I'm not downing the school, it's a great school, but it's like everybody does, it's like, oh, you can make all of this money as an entrepreneur, as a coach. And um, people don't know the smoke and mirrors of
Mhm.
this industry,
Mhm.
and it's a lot of smoke and
Mhm.
mirrors. And so, and it's good that I didn't at the time necessarily know that, but I struggled, my first year, and then I watched a bunch of other people struggle, and I watched over 90% of people just, give up on what they put, $5,000 toward, which to me was a lot of money, and I wasn't working, and like that's like this was my whole dream that I was going to do, so I wasn't, going to give up on it. And there's a lot that happened in that story, but eventually I just coined myself a life and business coach because everybody was coming to me for business stuff, even though I wasn't really making much money, but I was doing more than a lot of people, were. And I became a speaker. I loved speaking. Um, and so I was doing that, and I started enrolling people and helping them with their inner world, because something in me knew that
Mhm.
it wasn't just about the business, that it was about their inner world, which is what I still teach, that our inner world is our foundation. And um and then really growing and doing that. And I did I probably invested over $200,000 at this point in
Mhm.
different programs to find, and I don't mean this in a negative way. I mean this to say it to people who need to hear that most of the programs out there are crap from people that don't know what they're doing. And
Mhm.
I only work with like one or two clients at a time right now, so I'm not even on here like, hey, let me quote unquote sell myself. I don't sell
Mhm.
myself anyway,
Mhm.
but that's not my purpose in saying it. It's hard because either you have a lot of entrepreneurs who think that we shouldn't be investing, and we have shame around that, which
Mhm.
is sad because you don't open a brick and mortar business and not invest. Like it's the same thing with our businesses. We have to invest.
Mhm.
Or you've got those of us who have invested a ton of money and been burned. But the
Mhm.
way I utilized that is I learned who not to be, what not to do, what people need, and why they kept buying when they weren't getting what they should be getting, and why they like what it is that they needed from that. And then a lot of the business stuff, and I basically teach soul-led business to, I say, awakening entrepreneurs. Awakening can mean a million different things. It really means it's whatever it is to that person, but them just waking up to more of their purpose and who they truly are, and kind of seeing more of the world as it is, and wanting to live their purpose and do so profitably and passionately.
Mm.
um, but yeah, as I was doing that, I found that I completely just lost track of my thoughts, which is fine.
For
Um,
sure.
but it's a really incredible path. And oh, that's what I was going to say. Is as I was doing this, I found that a lot of my answers, I had a great coach that I worked with for 2 years who was wonderful. But a lot of my unique answers were really coming from within me. And so I don't like terms like downloaded and things like that, but whatever you want to call it, downloaded over the years, a whole system, if you will, and process of how you lead a soul-led business, and what people need, and I do it I've always done it very uniquely with every different person, because everybody's unique. So when I say system, it's not a one size fits all system. It really is all about what people need, what their purpose is, helping them position that uniquely, and then helping them lead with their heart and their mission in the way that they need to. And then, more importantly, how to connect to their soul and their soul answers over time. Because even though I've had clients that have worked with me for a decade, um, but that it shouldn't be them continuing to need you for the same thing, right?
Mhm.
People should be able to grow and grow and grow, and be able to connect more and more and more to their own unique answers and to their soul and to things that I couldn't possibly ever know
Mhm.
for them. And
Mm.
so, yeah, believe it or not, that really was a very short snippet of kind of who I am and what I do. It's not what I'm doing right now. I do work with one person at a time right now, but yeah, I spent a good 8 or 9 years doing that, and I was working on speaking circuits, so that's how I found my clients, and I started doing my own 2-day events and things like that.
There's so much there, and you hit on so many points that I'm so passionate about. One being the world of up until now, I do see the pattern of needing to invest what some people would be hundreds of thousands of dollars. I went the nutritional therapy practitioner route, so I have my
Mhm.
nutrition background also, and have my own discovery journey of getting spending the 6 grand to get certified, and then discovering, oh, I could help people. Well, I just discovered concurrently the world of words and linguistics and subconscious, and I'm like, oh, I'm not going to sell supplements to someone when I don't even know how to like support them at the subconscious level. So I kind of had an internal conflict and
Yep.
never did pursue the nutrition stuff. And much of what you're saying and much of what you're doing is the heart of those that I'm around now, the community that I really see that I've integrated into. And so with that, it is a pattern or normalcy of, you got to invest 100,000, 200,000. I think we have someone in our community that's invested over $1 million of self-help and self-development. And this
Mhm.
experience of, I want so much for us to learn our lessons, distill it down. And so someone else doesn't have to come behind us and spend the 6 figures to be embodied and to learn. And that's much of what my passion is and what's possible there. So I don't know if you have anything else you want to expand on or lean into of just the wisdom around, yes, you want to pay and invest, and also the lessons maybe you've learned or a lesson you've learned in regards to investing in something and it wasn't what you were wanting to put your money into.
Yeah, and, there's a lot with all of that. So, I mean, most importantly, the subconscious is. It's funny that you say that, and I somehow didn't hit on it because something that I teach is called Love You Journey, and it's something
Mhm.
that my soul taught me over the years. And so, the heart of everything that I do with every client, regardless of what area of life I'm working with them on, is and I'm going to use terms, Jenna, that are you hear out there, but it's not what you hear, if that makes sense. So if I say inner child, you hear things that sound like parts work and things like that. What I do is nothing like there's some stuff called like inner family systems, and all
Mhm.
that stuff's very lovely. I was doing all of this before I knew about any of that. I would just have people tell me, "Oh, that sounds like this," and I've already done that. I'd have, clients, and then I'd start doing Love You Journey and the deeper work with them, and they're like, "Oh, wait, no, this is nothing like that." But
Mhm.
really, it's all about the true meaning of polarity, which really is polarity is light and dark, masculine, feminine. But for me, it's all about our soul and our humanity,
Mm.
and uh, and a lot of what I'm creating right now is the depths of what I teach. So over the next couple of years, you may see some of it coming out. I will be working with like one client behind the scenes, helping them, build their own, big, 7-figure thing, which has to be heart centered and, like huge transformation for their people. But while I'm doing that, really what I'm looking to build out is my much bigger message, which is that there was an original design that was not a wounded human leading their life,
Mhm.
leading their relationships. I have a lot that I talk about that in regard to relationships. Like, we had nothing wrong with different parents. Like our parents had stuff that happened with them. Where some people have great parent situations, some people have horrible parent situations, some in between. But regardless of even great parents, we all got pretty messed up.
Mhm.
And there's an energetic, spiritual, whatever purpose to that, and that is what it is. And it wasn't the design. You
Mhm.
know, it, we weren't designed to have parents that were really messed up teaching us really weird energetic masculine feminine stuff so that we then go into these really messed up relationships, and then we have these really messed up relationships with money, and then we're living jobs just to get by and not living our passion and our purpose, right? And so that's a lot of what um that I'm really here to do, and that I'm really here to teach, is to helping people to inwardly polarize, right?
Mhm. Mm.
Um, which is actually having a soul led life. Now, I'm human, so I'm still human, and we are all on a journey, and I'm just a personal believer that it's and forgive me, but that it's BS that anybody is fully enlightened. Like, if you are still on this particular earth right now, like you're probably falling down sometimes still. Like, we all do. We're all human. And it's really important to me to guide people in a way of actually being a real human so that they realize that it's okay to be a real human.
Mhm.
But that over time, a piece at a time, I basically call it transformation.
Mhm.
Change, all kinds of change going on out there. I don't care about change. Change you can go back from. Change you use free will. Like, free will, I call a muscle that really should be used to, like, which I'll touch on in regard to programs and paying into programs. But, like, programs are all about solutions, right? When people talk to me, it's not an enrollment call, it's a solution session,
Mm.
right? So when somebody needs to step into a solution, they they're they basically need to use their willpower. I think I might have said free will and I mix them up in my head sometimes. But they need to use willpower, and they need that muscle because they've got all of these parts of them that are saying no. Because if it's an actual solution that's really going to help them, they have wounded human parts that are absolutely petrified, and they need support with that. And they're going to think that you're being salesy. And of course, because they're terrified and they've potentially very likely been burned in the past
Mhm.
with other programs. But it's super important that they have that, and that they have support with that. But as we're moving along in our journeys, utilizing willpower. So, like, let's just say, and I'm not a personal believer in, like, labeling ourselves alcoholics or things like that. You're not that. You might have an experience of that, like having an experience of alcohol dependency, but you are not that. It's not who you are. But let's say somebody makes a change, and for 20 years they're using willpower because it's what we're taught, and I'm not making anybody wrong for
Mm.
it. There is no wrong about it. But after 20 years they pick up a drink and then everything is the same. Well, and that one's a particularly difficult thing because alcohol and drugs and different things, even certain sexual things, can be so wrapped up in so much of our different trauma that it takes a lot to ever get to really transforming that. But
Mhm.
the but the point is utilizing willpower, and then all of a sudden you're drinking a bunch of coffee. Not that I don't love coffee, but, like, you're drinking coffee, you're smoking, you have candy all the time, and you're using a willpower muscle that is not meant to hold that kind of weight, right? And so you made a change, you did not transform.
Mhm.
The point being, when you transform what that is, and so a caterpillar becomes a butterfly. The butterfly is not flying around saying, I have to make sure I'm not a caterpillar again. It doesn't worry about that, right? There's transformation there. Now, I'm not saying that we don't have lots of caterpillars, and, like, I've got lots of butterflies in me that have had huge transformation, and I have caterpillars in me still, and some that still create certain things in my life that I desire and prefer, and some that I don't desire and I don't prefer. And you take it a breath at a time and a step at a time. And so I'm really big on that change is lovely when it's moving toward transformation, but the
Mhm.
idea is always to have transformation, which then when it comes to, if there are programs out there, and this is a tricky piece for me because I have even worked with clients that have programs that I wouldn't necessarily recommend. Not many. Um, but that's part of the job, and everybody's on their own journey. And I'm not here to say what should be or shouldn't be. If I need to leave a mission, I leave a mission, and I send love, and it is what it is. And mm, I there's a lot of us. They're trying to wake up, I hope, right? But they've got great hearts, right? I don't work with anybody that doesn't have a great heart, and I can feel that in people. And
Mhm.
so people with great hearts, but they're not awake, they're not aware, and they're in the same patterning themselves, and they're selling a message of you can have this and it can be perfect,
Mhm.
and everything's going to be fine, and everything's going to be okay, and everything's going to be great, and like, and then all of a sudden it's intertwined with, like, it saves everything, like, you have a program that offers like this, and now all of a sudden it's also taking care of addiction and all these other things, and it's people that are just a bit confused, right, with stuff
When
like
I
that.
hear as you're saying that too, the experience that I have is
Mhm.
those that will kind of paint that sail without understanding like the underbelly of what you're bringing out in someone and what's actually there and what actually needs support, and that illusion, or maybe illusion's not the right word, the spray paint on the rust spot isn't gonna actually be the solution, because it is that integration, that embodiment. There's still rust beyond the veneer, and that person hasn't necessarily had the come to Jesus sobriety of that experience to have that embodiment. And so I do see that too, where people are not embodied while they preach the message. And it's like there's an underbelly for some people that if you unlock for someone and aren't there, I think what's there is there's other people, other healers that are cleaning up the messes that other healers have done. And so I think that's probably where
Yep.
the wounding comes in, and where we kind of come out and talk about that. It's like you see
Hmm.
this, and that's one thing actually, as part of We're the Full Spectrum, what we're trying to create too is
Hmm.
a community where we can have these dialogues of like, this person's been vetted, this person isn't just showing up and now they have a storefront, they actually are part of a
Right.
community, they seek these integrated pieces that's not just a veneer kind of thing. So I appreciate you sharing that and having the sobriety on it too, because it is a conversation we kind of avoid talking about, and people are really harmed by maybe giving 20 grand to someone who has a really pretty veneer. And then you're like, oh, I mean, I learned a 20 grand lesson for myself, and it wasn't anything that that person sold. It was something I self-generated through that experience. And so I don't know if you had any of those too, where big investments, you just got to have that be a big learning lesson.
Well, the funny thing is that my program has been $20,000 since like 2015. So it's funny
Congratulations.
that you use that number, and I agree with you, because and there's different sides to it, because I've worked within companies too, like, so if a lot of the work I've done, so a lot of my Facebook doesn't really show a lot of who I am, what I do, what I've done, because it was kind of created for working with other clients, and I've been so behind the scenes the past several years. But I've seen that where, you know, um, people are disillusioned. They're so excited about what it is that they're doing that they think they're embodied in
Mhm,
what they're doing. I've watched their own clientele become suicidal, and them just making excuses about it, like it's part of
mhm,
the process and that it's
mhm,
okay. And it's like, God forbid people actually do have to, not have to, but do, like, that they have to go through the horror of their clients committing suicide, and having investigations around that
mhm,
just to get their attention.
mhm,
Um, and so and for me, it's tricky, because here's the thing with what I do. I'm always looking at, if somebody's investing $20,000 with me, and my programs were always 20,000 pay in full. Right. I
mhm,
mean, they started at like 2,000 back in 2012, but I very quickly moved up to 20,000, and I have reasons that I did that, and I have reasons I teach it that are really sound for business and are really sound for the client, and for the coach. Doesn't mean you don't have other programs eventually later, but I teach what I call a backwards funnel. I created a backwards funnel years ago. I have very good reason that I do it, that is all about serving the purpose, serving the mission, and serving the client.
mhm,
But one of the things around that is checking in constantly with your clients, right? With how they're doing, what's going on. Now, you're not going to have 100% of people that are ridiculously happy all the time, because it's big kinds of transformation, and it's really scary, and sometimes people are going to run away, or they're going to step out of that, or they're going to blame you. Like, I've had people blame me in the process over 14 years before, but we moved through that, and eh, you kind of stand in almost an energetic parent role,
mhm,
as you're guiding them. It's not that you're being their parent, but you represent some of that energetically, especially at a soul level.
mhm,
And so you get the backlash sometimes of their inner children, and you know I'm okay working through that and with that with people, but at the end, like, do you have a bunch of people who are happy who are not happy? And have you created a community and an environment where it's gotten so culty that they're afraid to be honest,
Mhm.
or that there's real honesty? And one of the differentiations that I see between that I recommend for people is the person that you're the person, the program, whatever that you're looking to enroll with, like, whatever it is they're offering, are they acting like they have it perfect and that you can have it perfect? Because if so, that's your first red flag, you know? Do they have clients that are like, oh, they have this perfect relationship, this perfect health, this perfect, right? It doesn't mean that there isn't transformation, Jenna. Like, of course there's transformation, but especially when it comes to the world of like relationships mirror us, right? Like parents, like being a parent, our kids mirror us, like that, all of a sudden just being sunshine and roses all the time, especially in a world of like we live in a very dualistic world that is coming back into polarity, but we still have the light and dark of that, and we're all learning. So that's one piece, is like looking at that, or is this somebody that's actually human, and
Mhm.
they're real and they're honest? And it's like, yeah, they can charge a lot, but you know are they going to be real about where they might have fallen down, where they might be wrong? Or if they feel like, and it's been very few times in my career that I could say this, but there's a couple of times, like, and I'm just thinking of one time that I won't go into, but I used to have a 1 year academy that all my VIP clients were a part of. And, it started with a 2-day public event, but then the clients both got 2-day events in the fall and in the spring. And it was a ton of fun. I was, leading the events and guiding them and transforming them. But the second event, there was something that I put a client on the spot in a certain way about a daughter who passed away. And it, that I really reflected on, and thankfully I caught even like the next day to be able to say something at the second day, in the event, um, that it wasn't appropriate what I did, and people really looked up to me.
Mhm.
And but it was so important, and it's really scary for people when they really look up to you, and it doesn't matter how honest you are. Sometimes when they see you be a real person, it scares the crap out of them, because then they're like, "Oh, no, but she really is a real person. She really does make mistakes sometimes. She, like," and people need to know that. Like, they need to know that we as guides, I even hesitate to say leaders, unless, like, I'm all about a leader amongst equals,
Mhm.
right? But
Mhm.
we as guides fall down too. We mess up too. And so how honest are people willing to be? And then in regard to actually investing, yeah, I'm big on making big investments when you want big transformation and you need big transformation.
Mhm.
There is, and I've worked with clients who actually have. I worked with somebody who kind of broke the barriers of everything, basically, that I teach, which is like that you really can't build a six-figure, much less a multi-six-figure business with small ticket stuff. And she did, but her life was a catastrophe. Like, not her life was a catastrophe, but
Mhm.
she was exhausted.
Mhm.
People weren't getting the transformation, right,
Mhm.
that they could be getting. She wasn't getting to do the kind of work that she wanted to be doing, and things were all over the place. So the business foundation was just really not sound. Clients weren't getting what they could be getting.
Mm.
I will say there are people out there that'll say, like, "Hey, yeah, I invested $2,000 or $3,000 and it transformed my whole life." And I hope that this doesn't sound arrogant or awful, because I certainly have done that even at this stage of my life, and it's great. But it depends on where somebody is in their life and
Mhm.
is in their journey.
Mhm.
If it depends on, like, what it is that you're looking to do and where you are, what it is that you need. And sometimes we need a $20,000 investment, energetically speaking, to get
Mhm.
us there, because I would say 85% of my clients didn't, quote unquote, have the money.
Mhm.
Now, so that is something that I'm big on. You don't just have a program and look for people with the money, because what is the point in that, and where's the heart in that,
Mhm.
right? And then also, it's not practical, right? Like, oh, okay, yeah, put $1,000 down, and then uh, come up with the rest of it in a couple of days. It's like, uh, most of the people I worked with were just like I was when I wanted to go to the institute. Like, I had to really be in my soul, which I didn't know what the hell even that meant at the time. I just somehow energetically knew. I
Mhm.
didn't know in my head, which was probably a good thing because I stayed in my heart. But people need support. And so
Mhm.
that's a big thing that I do differently, which is, um, yes, of course, there's the outer practical steps and things that people can take and do, but it's more importantly what's coming up in them as they're taking those steps.
Mhm.
What's
Mhm.
actually
Mhm.
scaring the crap out of them about it? What
Mhm.
are they resistant to? What is the number one thing that they say they won't do? Like, I won't go in debt. I won't talk to my parents. I won't talk to whatever. And it's not that I would force anybody to do anything, but there's usually something
Mhm.
behind that.
Mhm.
And it doesn't mean you never force anybody to do anything, right? But it's always what's going on in their inner world, right? Because there's really no more important a time that you're working with somebody, uh, yes, with their soul, but more importantly, with all of the wounded inner parts of them that are terrified, that really need
Mhm.
to be able to trust you and trust themselves. The most important time is right at the beginning.
Mhm.
And so there's the practicalities, right, of the money with that, and there's the practicalities of their inner world and the parts of them that are like, no. I'm like, no, this is too scary. I'm not going to do this. And so they need to be able to trust you. So there's so many different things. And yes, I've invested $20,000 in things that, in a program that, was basically a cult, like a business program that was a cult, and I would watch people. I went through the whole program with somebody who said, "I will never invest again." We ended up at the 3-day event that she would have every year for the public and the students got it for free because she wanted them to re-enroll. And it was like an $8,500 program, I think, for people, but it was almost 20,000 for me because I was making six figures at the time. So, um, that was a much smaller group of people, that if you're making six figures already, you're basically at a point of like leveraging your business. But in that particular program, I watched that person, and there was so many people that this happened with, say, I'm not doing this. This is disgusting. This is horrible. And by the time we got to the event, same thing. She always sold the second day. And I watched the woman, that my friend, walk right up there and sign up again. And I mean, like, that's okay. Like, but she didn't want to talk to me the rest of the time because she was embarrassed. And it was like, hey, it's your life, it's your journey, it's
Mhm.
your choice. But I was so curious, and what I found was, over and over and over again, people would say to the coach, they'd be like, blah blah blah. I don't, because I don't want to say her name. Like, your content's good and all, but I come back because you've built such a wonderful community. Like, to me, that would be a huge ass red flag. Excuse my language, but that's a big red flag because yes, people like, first of all, they need community so badly, right? But if they're investing that kind of money over and over and over again and their business is still not making money, and that's what you're, I mean, like, my work, I don't promise anything about the money. It's all about the inner world, and it's all about, like, our inner prosperity, and people generally do make, quite a bit of money, but I don't like to make those kinds of, promises. But if you're promising that and somebody's coming back 8 times, it, I just don't understand it.
There's a whole world that I want to get into, and I'll have to save it for another day because I can kind of see it a
Mm,
little bit, but I don't have it articulated. I do have
mhm.
the 4 minute, 20 minute,
Oh,
4 minutes and 20-second marker, and I wanted to leave and kind of end on this note and pass the mic. And if it just drops off at the end, that's totally okay too. Just for
mhm.
those that are watching, that's just we're playing with this limitation. Either way, what I want to say is for the person who's out there wanting to change their world and get started, how do you make sure you don't get into these communities that are fake or cult-ish, or how do you know that you're really at a space that's going to get you to your soul, kind of speak?
Yeah, that's a really great question. It's so funny because Jenna, like, all the stuff that I really love talking about, and the original design, and what I'm really here to do is more of what I love talking about. But this was
Mhm.
obviously what was meant to be for today.
Mhm.
But yes, so, and everything it is that I did led me, where I am. And I think that's the biggest thing is I teach something called problem and solution path. And um, basically, especially when somebody's in like an enrollment call, what I call solution session with me, if it's their solution to step into something with me, and their soul told me that, and their human self told me that, but now I'm talking to their wounded part, who's just like all of a sudden all the reasons that were there are like, oh no, I can't, or I need this time. I like all the excuses are coming up when they were 100% sure before. I'm not forcing anybody into anything. I'm not here for that. So what I help them with even in regard to working with me is there's problem path and there's solution path. And right now, you're talking to me because you're on the same problem path over and over and over again.
Mhm,
And but now you're aware of it.
mhm,
And now I have you open and awake and aware to it. And that's what I want. And so, you know, I personally believe that this is absolutely what you need, and it's what you already told me that
mhm,
you need. But
mhm,
I'm not going to force you. What I want you to do is because I was like, you're going to be relieved after this. You're going to step out and be like, oh, thank God I didn't do that because you're going to go back into the same stuff. And I was like, but if I am correct, that's what I tell people. If I happen to be correct, all the problems are going to come back up. And
mhm,
what I want you to do is pay attention and pay
mm,
attention to them coming back up and be aware because whether it be with me or with somebody else, universe, God, source, soul, whatever, will give you another opportunity for solution. Another opportunity for solution will always be there. Then say yes, regardless of what you feel like your
mhm,
limitations are. And if you end up in a situation that does end up being cult to you, which I have, um, that soul led you there for a reason. Like don't go back, but
mhm,
learn why you were there and what it was there to teach you and who you want to be and who you
mm,
don't want to be. Like I
mhm,
learned a lot from that business program of who not to be as I was doing spiritual business coaching. And so there's a reason that we're in every coaching situation, every relationship that we're in. There's a purpose that we can take from it, even if it's toxic and awful. Doesn't mean stay, but what was the purpose? What was the reason? And how do you make something of it for yourself so that
mm.
you don't have to remain a victim?
I really hear that too. And as we get under 1 minute, I'll kind of wrap us up and just really see this experience of pointing people into their own leadership. And I really see that in your embodiment too. It's like this is all of us together, and some of us are choosing to stand what feels like alone or at the first. And really, all that we're trying to do in standing is have everyone stand with us and trying to bring that together as quick as possible. And just really, no matter where you go, there's a reason. And as quick as you can learn the lesson, great. If it comes through the long way or the hard path or the expensive path, you learn it all the more, and just appreciate
Mhm.
you just showing up and organically speaking what's there. I do want to lean in because I'm still interested on what you have to share more. So I know we'll have another conversation. All that to say, just thank
Yeah.
you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for being on mission. Thank you for being just a gift of wanting people to be their highest at all places, all spaces, all time, and leaping in with me, as you kind of said in the beginning, the leap changed your life. That's kind of my take too. It's just leap in. You don't know what will get created, having fun, play, and bliss all along the way. So thank you for the fullness of which you showed up, and we'll be in touch. I'm probably gonna clock out of here because it's probably just gonna shut me down in a second. But either way, I love you so
Okay.
much. We'll be
Thank
in
you.
touch. See you
Sending
soon.
love. Thank you so
Bye bye.
much.